Five Lamps Arts Festival 2020.
Hello, how that be your listening parts? Are you up to engage in the page two-stage spoken word arts? How that be your listening bits? Are you in good wits or secretly off your testing one, testing two? Just gonna play around and fuse a few. Someone from the Dale of the Darn is gonna spin a yarn, more significant than Animal Farm. Someone from the View of the Moat is gonna nail a note, pin it on a cynic like an antidote dope quote. Someone from the Camp of the Bell is gonna outcast a spell when a whiz a what a witch a rhyme chime and improb a bell. Meanwhile, there's more of the Eden hairline receding, though barely teed and stood scarcely believing that all of them other places full of concrete scheming be also indulging earnestly in the escapist dreaming. And strolling, diving, duck-diving, weaving geographically. Affably I have walked these zones, occasionally acoustically accompanied by the headphones, and I've witnessed quite identifiable identical homes, and sometimes I've listened to quite sensible, passionate poems. The hometown can hammer the cown down, but we can rise up above the ground and the pound down. This is where I'm from, my roots, my ground. This be where me be born and me third eye feels bound to the concrete in a corner gaff. I'm sound with the coastline, even in a photoshopped photograph. I'm linked to the famine, I'm part of the boom. Tasted the mic and I've prayed to the moon, and I've tied to the chestnuts, the sycamore tree, tied to this state and its scaremongery. This is where I'm from, my stem, my sky, my once upon, amen. My reason why I feel bound to the begging of that street urchin. Sound slow snogging at the hippie hop lurching, linked to the Viking, part of the rising, tasted the biting and sample downsizing, and I'm tied to the ink in the proclamation, tied to the Emmy and the migration. This is where I'm from, my soil, my space, my sky, my stem, my time, my place. And I'm bound to the bog, bound to the brick, sound as a pound when I'm taking the mick, linked to the Brits, and I'm part of the Gaeltacht, tasted the myths and learned me Mo Kenealoch, and I'm tied to the source of the Shanachie story. I'm tied to its source, to its roots, to its core me, tied to the source of a civil rights struggle, tied to the source of a Moore Street haggle. It is my street, it's your street, not the high street. Moore Street, it's a fruit and veg, fish and flower street. Moore Street is our street. Ireland, Éire, emerald, oil. You lived at large, now recharge that mobile. If only we'd have kept it tight for a wee while, we wouldn't have so many of our young folk in X. I'll Shangri-La when I go home with the pen and the pad, composing on rock the metaphor, ring the silly bell, a poem I true love fare thee well. Mouth you come in form or flow, find your feet stroll soft and slow. Know that you will never die, passer-by, please cast cold. I see them beep, beep, beep in their horn, in the lee of a rad Kardashian early morn. The Gardaí at the homeless on Henry, I'm angry, disgusted. I thought that the police busted criminals and gangsters. Go on and harass them bankers, not the vulners, the vultures, the heartless, the faceless. Meanwhile, daily we face this epidemic in our republic. Something needs doing and done quick, for never in our history have we had homelessness like this. Can anyone here tell me when an emergency becomes a crisis? For latelys, all I seems to see is lots of ladies and gentrified peoples making biddings for the dwellings of the roofings of the former church steeples, and I'm spying loads of lads, loads of lasses, traditional working classes, turfed out on their asses. Oh my, what a state of chassis. Check out the Dublin 70 Heavenly O'Devanly flats, clinging to the stem of the skirt of the stony bats. Proper prime land for top dog property cats, hitting their targets with air stolen cats. Bang on the ear, kicked out to the curb. I've a contract here in Blocks 2 refurb. Shifted, been granted planning permission for that space. quoting the omnipotent road and ringing up the rat race, fixing it so the middle ground is squeezed. You miss a few payments and your family gaff gets seized, and you're homeless in a hotel. You're kipping in a car. I know the signs so well, 'tis gentrified we are. But surely to Jesus, we can do better. Our grandparents and our parents, sure, they all knew better. They may have had way less, but they were more together, aware of the share. Sure, they knew whether you were shy of some sugar or a slice too shy. Minding each other was how we got by. So can't our actions catch those falling through the cracks? Can't we just say, hey, we've got your backs? For it all adds up now. Makes sense. Lend a leg up now. Makes sense. Pool all of our talents. Makes sense and gives you change. For change. For change. For once, I'm not the most pissed on the street. For once, I actually have purpose to the pattern of these feet. And I'm sidestepping sudden rivulets of steamy piss froth. But it's no drag. I know the tow rag and the dirty old dishcloth. You see, I'm heading north. Cab's cheaper if I shift it down one more postal code. So I stroll by this slow-mo vigil of yellow-lit taxis curb crawling the road. And I almost melt at the sight of a burger. I almost melt with the waft of the vinegar till boom. It got vulgar, the angry side of our drinking culture. Violent, aggressive, similarly attired young men contorting, post-snorting under the tungsten, and all of them tough when them ganged in the group. When taken out of the loop, individually them be frightened little chicken soup. Are they so empty and thus so easily filled with rage? Was I like that too when I was that age? Paradoxically, I walk on, put on my blinkers to their blindness, and while I walk on, it doesn't take long to experience some kindness. A human being hands a homeless human being some fast food. Yeah, man, can't you tell, dude? It's all cool, man. You can be intelligent and sentimental and still be nobody's fool, man. I spool on, treading this tightrope that is taut and snappable, and all of my glances are gloriously caught, and everything is wrappable and it's palpable here in the bare bar of the temple, where suddenly it is all so simple, people. It's all the one. One is all the maths. To get a bit of work done and to have a bit of fun, we'll balance out them stats, and them low flats are only there to highlight the high rise. We don't need to organise. We ought to empathise. Eventually I come to the bridge and I pause, and soberly I ponder the wonder of the universal laws, and there's a rank of Joes over me shoulder to avail of real shortly, and soon I turned across the road to keep on keeping north me. You see, now I can afford me a journey, comfy, sitting shotgun. Some folks be flush financially, but me, I ain't got none, and instantly I spot fun with the destiny-bound designated driver. Instantly recognisable, he was a born survivor, civilised chat, bouncy, banter. He wasn't a homophobic, xenophobic, robotic raving ranter. He was a chill guy, so kilometres spilled by are a nice casual canter, with one moment being followed by one slightly more significanter, and I'm a tanker, me, a repreciator. I'm real grateful. If I was the dealer, me, the banker, me, I wouldn't deal hateful. We're all the one head, makes us all the one hatful. There you go, son. My stats skull is now completely statful.
I've written a couple of books about Dublin, about growing up, the 1950s to 1960s. My ma and dad were two larger-than-life characters. And people often say to me about my work that it's full of the old Dublin humour. Love that Dublin wit. Give us more of that Dublin wit. So this got me thinking, is there such a thing as Dublin humour, as opposed to any other humour? Now, I grew up in the 1960s watching black and white television. And my first introduction to comedians was New York Jewish humour. I particularly loved Woody Allen. And in one of his early routines, Woody Allen takes a silver watch out of his pocket and he holds it up for the audience to see. This watch is very important to me. It's a prized possession. My grandfather, on his deathbed, he sold me this watch. Another great New York Jewish comedian was a man called Jack Benny. Now, Benny's standard thing was that he played the violin really badly, and it was hilariously funny. But he used to tell a story about how he was walking down the street in New York one day, and this kid jumped out and pointed a gun at him. "Hey, you, give me your money." "Me?" "Yeah, you see me pointing this gun at you? Your money or your life? You hear me? Your money or your life?" All right, I'm thinking about it." Now, Jewish humour would be largely to do with money and meanness and all of those kinds of things. And if Dublin humour has a root, it would be the absence of money. It would be much more to do with poverty, with not having things. You know, there's a famous story about a woman from Sheriff Street, goes into the butcher shop in Moore Street for the sheep's head. "Give me a sheep's head, son." The butcher puts it up on the counter for her. "You call that a sheep's head? It's very small." "That's a sheep's head, missus. What more do you want me to do?" "Well, Jesus, you could cut it a bit nearer the arse." "Now, while I'm here, you might as well give me the half of the pound of the pork sausages." "Ha ha, ma'am, it's kilos now. Everything is kilos." "All right then, give me a half pound of the kilo, so." Now, the Jews invented the wake. Much to our surprise, we've often thought that the wake is an Irish invention, but in fact, it was the Jews who invented it. And they did this thousands of years ago. You see, what used to happen was somebody would die and everybody would be sitting around the corpse. And after 10 or 12 hours, the corpse would wake up because, of course, the person wasn't dead. They were in a coma or unconscious, and they woke up. So they were terrified of burying the person alive. So in order to cover this eventuality, the Jews decided to have a 3-day wake or vigil. So they would all sit around the corpse and cry and say prayers and cry more and say more prayers. So 3 days of that, and you were pretty sure the person was dead. Now, the Irish thought this was a very, very good idea, this wake. Except they didn't think the crying bit and the praying bit was much to write home about. So they said, could we not have a couple of drinks and maybe an old sing-song? And that was how the Irish wake came into being. Now, my cousin, well, my father's cousin, John Welch, he came from the Smithfield area of Dublin, and he was a wake organiser in that area. There was nothing about wakes that he didn't know. And one day, he's at a wake, and the widow is crying her eyes out in the corner. And this man comes over to my cousin, John Welch, and says, "What should I do?" And my cousin tells him, "You go over there now to the widow, you take her hand, you give it a good shake, and while you're shaking it, you look at her, and you say, 'I'm very sorry for your trouble.' Then move on." So the man goes over and takes the widow's hand. "I'm very sorry for your trouble. Move on." Now, Uncle Cuz, John Welch, his favourite song was a song called Finnegan's Wake. So, I'll give you a bar or two of the said Finnegan's Wake. Tim Finnegan lived in Watling Street, a gentleman Irish, mighty odd. He had a brogue most rich and sweet, and to rise in the world he carried a hod. Now Tim had a bit of the tippler's way. With the love of the liquor he was born, and to help him on his way each day, he'd a drop of the crater every morn. Whack fall the doora, dance to your partner, round the floor your trotter shake. Isn't it the truth I've told yous? Lots of fun at Finnegan's wake. One morning Tim felt rather full. His head was heavy, which made him shake. He fell off a ladder and he broke his skull. They carried him home, his corpse to wake. Well, they wrapped him up in a nice clean sheet, and they laid him out upon the bed. with a bottle of whiskey at his feet and a gallon of porter at his head. Whack fall the doora, dance to your partner, round the floor your trotters shake. Isn't it the truth I've told yous? Lots of fun at Finnegan's wake. Well, the friends assembled at the wake, and Mrs. Finnegan called for lunch. First she brought out tea and cake, then pipes, tobacco and whiskey punch. Then Biddy O'Brien began to cry. Such a nice clean corpse did yous ever see? Ah, Tim of Vernon, why did you die? Hold your gob, says Paddy McGee. Whack fall the doora, dance to your partner, round the floor your trotters shake. Isn't it the truth I've told yous? Lots of fun at Finnegan's wake. Well, Biddy O'Connor took up the cry. Ah, Biddy, says she, you're wrong, I'm sure. Biddy gave her a punch in the gob and left her sprawling on the floor. Civil war did soon engage. It was woman to woman and man to man. Shillelagh rule was all the rage. A row and eruptions soon began. Whack fall the doora, dance to your partner, round the floor your trotters shake. Isn't it the truth I've told yous? Lots of fun at Finnegan's wake. Well, Mickey O'Connor ducked his head when a bottle of whiskey flew at him. It missed and landed on the bed. The whiskey splattered over Tim. Begorra Tim, see how he rises. Tim Finnegan rising from the bed, saying, splatter me whiskey around like blazes, thundered and Jesus, do you think I'm dead? Whack fall the doora, dance to your partner, round the floor your trotters shake. Isn't it the truth I've told yous? Lots of fun at Finnegan's wake.
We're members of Uncut Diamonds. Uncut Diamonds is a community-based theatre group which was formed about 4 years ago. And I suppose the idea came from the fact that the area is changing so much and there's so many issues, and yet those issues hadn't really been properly talked about. But this not saying things is actually rooted deep in the community. For instance, my father was a docker, his father was a docker, and I know very little about them. In fact, on my father's deathbed, I held him, and this is what I said to him. No ships in. You didn't tell me all you knew just before you threw off those shoes and brought new teeth into the argument. Should we have rolled down those tears in the new landscape that you brought me to remember? The once struggle of feet on keys and the waiting for the word that would determine whether the day would end with bread or poverty. I waited for you eagerly to bring me to your secrets beyond the world's end and not come back. But you never whispered till the final bell. What you told me will see me through a lifetime of untying the knots that bind us to the river and the sea, and the tidal waves of love and sorrow bringing us to some terminal dockside gathering. I look at you now, wasted in my arms, and you become that young man again, with hands like shovels, unloading the cargo of the world. The read is good for some in the city, but your name will not be called out. Your gang has gone. And I suppose the point of Uncut Diamonds was that the gangs of dockers who went without telling their stories. So we were set up to try to get local people to tell the stories. Patricia, just tell us about the last two plays.
Yeah, we write all our own plays and they come from the experience of the community. And the last two were called Amber, a Girl in Homelessness Land. It was about a teenage girl and her experience of homelessness. And she meets two homeless men on the canal who can't get into a hostel because they have a dog. And the second one was called Under Pressure, and it's about drug intimidation, people who owe money to drug gangs and are afraid to tell anybody, and the retribution that they exact. So they were two great plays, and we travelled them. We took Under Pressure up to Dundalk and a few other places.
So for the next project, we sort of decided to do something outdoors, and then COVID obviously intervened. But while we were talking about it, we sort of realised that the area not only has a rich history in the sense of the docks and where the area is based, but it has an extraordinary literary history. We discovered that from Abercorn Road, which is Upper Sheriff Street, where O'Casey lived in number 18, to where his final house was up in 422, the North Circular Road. In between, you have people like Lou Kelly. You have people like Brendan Bean living in Russell Street. You had James Joyce living in North Richmond Street. And you had Bram Stoker living in Buckingham Street. So you had this extraordinary, it's like a literary history of Ireland. And that hasn't been spoken of. So what we've done is taken extracts from their works, and along the way, along from Abercorn Road up to the North Circular Road, we also tell stories about events that happen in the area. Like, for instance, the North Strand bombing and the North Strand flooding. So it's rich, isn't it, Patricia?
It's great. I play Kathleen Bean, which I love. I love the character. She's Brendan Bean and Dominic Bean's mother. And she was a great woman in her own right. She made an album when she was 91. And she had a very tough life. So I'm playing that character and I really like it. And we're filming all this around the area.
And I'm playing John O'Casey. So can I introduce you to an extract, the first extract from our literary tour. This is the piece about John O'Casey.